there, I'm Clifford Bates, and welcome once again to reading Machiavelli's Prince. We're still in the fourth section of the text, which is between chapter 20 to 25, which deals with the question of the prudence of the prince. Right? And I mentioned before in the previous videos that this is as much testing the prudence, talking about the question of prudence and the judgment of the prince or the ruler, but also judging the reader's judgment, because Machiavelli will constantly recommend in these sections things that are contradicted by his other teachings or other things. So in places where he said elsewhere in this thing. So he sometimes will, in his own name, tell you to do something which he has basically taught you was wrong. Okay. But other times he will tell you new things. Okay, so there is this double play going on. So there's new lessons. This chapter 24, which is like we have 25 and 26, two chapters left of the whole Prince. One chapter left on the Prudence Prince, which is the big one, unfortunately, right? But 24 is about on why the princes of Italy lost their kingdom. In other words, why did the princes of Italy have lost their things, that lost their political roles, the kings of Italy? Usually, this meant the real king is king of Milan, of course, but also king of Naples, right? Naples and Milan both will lose their kingdoms. But there are other princes of Italy. But they're only kingdoms that lost their kingdom. No, that's a kingdom, and that the kingdom of Naples and the two Sicilies, the kingdom of Naples and the two Sicilies, and then there's the kingdom of Milan, right? The scores is also tied up. So therefore, this is a very interesting title here. This is a short chapter, three paragraphs in the Italian, so it's not a long chapter. He says, the things written above, observe prudentially. In other words, everything that we discussed before, now observe prudentially. And it's the role of prudence here, right? Makes a new prince seem ancient, and immediately render him more secure and more firm in the state than if he had become ancient in it. So in other words, if you observe the things we've talked about prudently, you're able to do something which, for a new prince, could achieve the same outcome of someone who was a prince who's come into power, who's long held power, and long maybe even held it in the way most ancient former princes, hereditary, right? So therefore, this is a very interesting moment. He suggests, right? If you the things written above, if observed prudentially, would make a prince seem ancient and render him more secure and more firm than if he had become ancient in it, right? For the actions of a new prince are much more observed than those of a hereditary one. Again, so this is, in other words, they're new modes, they're new, right? And therefore they're more observed. And when they are known to be virtuous, much more do they pick up men, and much more do they obligate them than does ancient blood. So this really contradicts much of what he argued in the text previously. So while he says I should follow the things I've said before prudentially, he then makes a claim that seems to contradict all the lessons of the earlier chapters. The discussion of hereditary princes and why they are stable, and what is the way, what is their only situation, and the risks and dangers of new principates. And the words, he seems to flip it around that, if you're prudent, you can solve all these problems. if you just followed my advice on these things. And they, in other words, and he says that that once they're known to be virtuous, men must more. Once a prince is known to be virtuous, new prince, much more do they pick up men, and much more do they obligate them than does ancient blood. Well, wait a minute. Okay, this is something going funny here. For men are more taken by present things than by those of the past. Okay, yes, that's true. The present moment occupies us more than the past. And when they find the good in the present, they enjoy that and seek for nothing more. Okay, understand. On the contrary, they will take up every defense for him when he himself is not found lacking in other things. Okay, I have to, remember the story about the people. They loved the line. They loved the prince. So when someone killed the prince, and the only one was a little child, that they brought in a kin member of that, and I'm sorry, his examples suggest that hereditary princes, as long as the bloodline there is more loved than new princes. And remember what he said about the yes, that people care more for the now. See, he said that people care more for the. So he's repeating the truth about the people caring more for the present, right? But he ignores the fickleness. The fickleness and the now may not be that the interest of the now may not be the interest of the new prince. The new prince is, well, remember what he said about the new prince. The prince is not giving you but the now, it's giving you but the future. And they don't know the future. They have not tasted the good that will be theirs. They only remember that was theirs, okay? Or their current thing. So therefore, there's this double sense. So, in other words, for men, take the present, right? He says that in the past they enjoyed and seek nothing more. On the contrary, they will take up every defense for him, and when he himself is not found lacking in other things, right? So therefore, this is the idea that he should be not lacking in other things, that they'll take a defense for him. Well, these are statements where there's little bits of these are echoing things he said earlier, but how he's saying them now slightly changes from what he said before. And so he will have a double glory. And so he will have a double glory of beginning a new principate and of augmenting and strengthening in it with good laws, good arms, and good examples. Okay, this is interesting. This is the truth. This is the glory. This is how you get something glorified. By what? By yes, you get the new principate. So that's a new thing, but the new thing is risky and not things of ornamenting and strengthening in it with good laws, good arms, and good examples. Okay, this sounds reasonable, but he has not discussed good laws. He Remember, that's very interesting. He speaks of good laws, but you know and good examples of these there's something going on here. What is going on here? And as that one will have double shame who, though born a prince, has lost the principate by his little prudence. So therefore, the double shame is one who's been born a prince, though born a prince. So if you're not born a prince and become a prince, you get double glory. But if you're born a prince but lose it because of this, you get double shame. Now, this is interesting. Now, how he ends this, seeks praising. He praises the innovation of new princes. and then damns the fact that one who is born a prince, because of his little prudence, loses it. Okay, this is an interesting title because the suggesting is how they lost it. So the way he introduces it, he talks about the new prince who becomes a prince from nothing, right? Or from not from a private person to a prince, right? But the suggestion here is that one who is a prince who then loses his kingdom. So now this leads us to the second, but he ends the first paragraph of that this is the double shame of one who's born a prince and loses principate by his little prudence. Now he goes, and if one will consider these lords of Italy who have lost their state in our time, such as the kingdom of Naples, the kings of Naples, right? Frederick Aragon, whose kingdom was taken by Frederick of Aragon, which was taken by Ferdinand of Spain, right? And Louis the XII of France in 1503. In other words, Ferdinand of Spain and Louis the XII of France in 1503. Frederick of Aragon's kingdom. And the Duke of Milan, Sforza, right? Sforza, Elmero, the Duke of Milan, and others, so I mentioned them, one will find in them first a common defect as to arms. For the causes which have been discussed above at length, that is, they rely on mercenary arms, or mercenary or allied arms, auxiliary arms, right? Moreover, one will see that some of them either made the people enemies, or if they made the people's friends, they did not know how to secure themselves against the great. So they didn't, in other words, that they either made the people the enemies, or they didn't, even if they made the people friendly to them, they didn't secure themselves against the great. In other words, maybe they were studying the flatterers and things like that, because so you need good arms, the people, and avoiding the great, right? Avoiding securing against the great. Because without these defects, states are not lost that have enough nerve, and this is that weird three nerve, okay? Um, de Alvarez talks about nerve here, and I think it's important. In other words, you need to go out and make a field of the day on the field, right? A nerve is the sense of vigor and power, right? Nervo in the Italian, is in the sense of vigor and power, right? Have had enough nerve, power, vigor, and power to take an army to the field, right? This is, again, this metaphor of the field, make a day of battle. Um, um, that's always the line there. Is chapter 10, right? He says they should make a day. This reflects the aspect of what happens in chapter 10, right? A day of battle that you must, okay, you're confronted in other words, what is it? What strength? Yeah, food. Starting with the German cities, and they should have being able to make a day of it, right? Making a day of it. Um, Again, that is the what prince's strengths. What mode the strengthen of all principates ought to be weighed. In other words, they should be able to have reserved by any other and make a day of it. Put together a proper army and make a day of it. Right. This is the thing that he talks about, chapter 10, that chapter about the strength of a prince. Right. So must have the power, the energy, and the vigor to be able to take an army to the field and make a day of it. Chapter 10. Philip of Macedon, not the father of Alexander, but the one who was conquered by Titus Quintus. So therefore, not the Philip we know of Alexander's father, the great conqueror of the Greek cities, but Philip V, king of Macedonia. He was defeated by the consul Titus Quintus Flaminius at Clinosophilia in 129. Quintus, noted for his Panhellenism, proclaimed the freedom of the Greeks at the Ithian Games in 196. He was hailed by the Greek cities as their defender. For Philip and Titus Quintus, see Discourses 2 and chapter 4, and book 3 of Discourses, chapter 10. On Philip, Discourses 3, chapter 37, right? So Machiavelli goes on an extensive further examination of this example of the rise of Philip and Quintus, who takes him on, right? So that Philip, right, did not have much state when compared to the greatness of the Romans and of the Greeks who were attacking him. Nevertheless, by being a military man and one who knew how to keep and provide for the people and to secure himself against the great, he for many years sustained a war against them. And if in the end he lost the dominion of some cities, the kingdom nevertheless remained his. So therefore, this metaphor of this, that the metaphor he gives of Philip of Macedon, of the Macedonian, this later Philip, who fought against the Romans, who were competing much bigger states, but he was able to, he was a military man, being able to just bring an army together, provided for the people, so had the people on his side, and to secure himself against the competition, the great. So doing all these three important things that sense. He was able to sustain wars against that, and his kingdom remained his. So therefore, the example of what is to do successfully in that sense, right? Therefore, let these our princes. So what is it that his criticism of the three cities is that they did not have their own arms. They relied on mercenary and things, so they didn't have their own. They didn't care for the military arms and didn't have an army that was theirs that could go out and make a field, and then they weren't really well on military affairs. Two, they often had the hatred of the people, and people didn't hate them, or they did not know. Even if they had the love of the people, they didn't manage the great, can secure themselves against the great, right? So this is the problem of the kings, right? Therefore, let these our princes, who have been in their principate for many years, and then lost it, not accuse fortune. Now, 6 fortune here. Okay. Dropping books. I'm sorry. Let's go look at fortune here. Fortune here is chapter 10, 20. This idea of this person in note 6 above, which is a 6 fortune. That fortune is it's a willing being, an action force, an active force, right? That is a willing active force here. It echoes there, right? This is not. So therefore, again, we have fortune bringing up. He mentions fortune. We shouldn't blame fortune for this. You should not accuse fortune. If you've been a prince and you've not taken care of these things and you've lost it, do not accuse fortune. Let our princes who have been princes in many years and then lost it, not accuse fortune, but their own indolence. For never having in quiet times thought that times could change, for not to take account of the tempest the tempest during the calms is a common defect of man. So in other words, we don't think about the bad times. We think about if we have the times are good, we don't think about the bad times. We don't prepare. In other words, this is the thing that you need to prepare. He talks about Machiavelli in his discussion of the princes, what the prince should do, in the arms sections. Um, uh, 12, 13, 14, right? That what a prince should do should prepare for bad times. Even in times, even in chapter 10 about the strength of a prince, that they must provide provisions and provide so that they're able to be prepared for the bad time. So therefore, men during the tempest don't pay attention. They don't take account of the tempest, right? This is a common defect of men. They don't think of the bad times. They only understand the present, right? This is the idea they see the present now, right? And then when adverse times came, they thought only of fleeing and never defending themselves. Okay, they protected themselves. They fled, and they hoped that the people, tiring of the insolence of the conquerors, would call them back. Right. This is in other words, his example of what is true. That is, instead of fighting, the hereditary prince could always rely on the people's love of them or the line. They'd get tired of the things and they would bring them back, support them back, right? Such a remedy when others are lacking is good, okay? Because you're not relying on yourself; you're relying on the people, right? You're relying on it's not when such a remedy when others you don't have other remedy. That's good, but it is very bad indeed to have to let go other remedies for this one. In other words, if you had other remedies, if you prepared, if you did that, if you had the people's support, you took care of that, you had the means to do that, you didn't have to use this. The people's waiting for the people to get tired of the conquerors, right? And calling you back. But it is very bad indeed to have to let go of others for this one, right? For one should never fall believing that someone else will be found to pick you up. Now, this is that famous line. The you here is, I'm going to do it here. The you is the second person familiar again here. He's talking to you, pick you up, the reader. He's talking to you, the reader. Is familiar. The you here is both the prince and to the prince that's being talked about and to the reader. Pick you up. And again, you're depending on another. You're depending on someone to pick you up. You shouldn't be doing this. It is very bad indeed to have to let go of other remedies for this one, for one should never fall believing that someone will be found to pick you up. That either does not happen, or if it does, it is not to your security, because such a defense is based and does not depend upon you. So in other words, double offense is based. Why? Because it's not your virtue. Someone else's virtue will do it. It's not your virtue. It depends on someone else. It does not depend on you. And therefore it's your weakness, which is it's not a good sign. It is not your security. And those who are strong enough to bring you back may not want to bring you back in the way that you would want. Okay, so therefore that's another thing. And only those defenses are good, are certain, are durable, which depend on you and your virtue. Now, this is very important. But the only thing that are good, certain, and durable, those strategies, those defenses, those techniques to protect, to preserve yourself, to preserve your regime, depend upon yourself and your virtue, your character. In other words, your ability, your virtua means your strength, your character, your prudence, your judgment, your understanding of the thing. So therefore, this is how we end this chapter. This chapter ends on a discussion of two things. One is the choice of relying on oneself, not relying on others, and then on the question of the virtue of the prince, which the highest virtue, thus in this case, is what we said, the prudence. Because remember, it begins with how the chapter begins with, that we have to observe things prudentially, right? The lessons that we've learned here. So we'll stop here. If you have any comments or questions, please put them below. And once I see them, I'll respond to them. Questions and engagement helps, brings out the algorithm in that sense. If you like the video and like this section of the prints, please hit the like button, please. It helps. YouTube algorithm loves likes. It helps to get more attention to the video and also more attention to the channel. If you've again, it helps the algorithms. Another thing you can do is, if you like the video and you think it's interesting, share it. Share it on your social media. Share it to a friend. Share it far and wide, as a friend of mine jokes about it. Again, share. Engagement. Any engagement, either comments, liking it, or sharing, are forms of engagement that affects the algorithm. Another thing you can do is, if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. Again, we're at that magical number, but also this factor, increased growth of the internet channel. As the channel incrementally grows organically, we get more attention. The algorithm kind of likes us in a certain way. Another thing you can do is you can, if you didn't like it, you can say, no, I didn't like the channel with fans in the background, and okay, whatever. Or you misunderstood what Machiavelli says here. Say so in the comments. You can always dumb down it, but say it in the comments. This way people can benefit and learn from it, okay? And it's also engagement. So all engagement helps in that sense. Another thing you can do is, if you want to follow me on social media, my URL is the social media below. And if you want to know more about me as a researcher and a scholar, and check out my research and things like that, you can do so through the academic social media URLs that are beneath the social media links. And if you want to help me financially, you can do so through Patreon or Subscribestar. The mechanisms. Or another way you can do that is to buy one of my books that are listed below. Okay, that's it. Well, that should cover are listed below, but you can order them through your local bookstore, either online distributor like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or whatever, or through the publishers themselves. Well, that's it. The next time we meet, we check the chapter 25, which I'm discussion of fortune, and we'll be on the penultimate chapter of the Prince. Okay, take care. Bye-bye. Have a good day.